Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Gender and Development Studies, SOTST, Bachelor's Degree Programs. Bachelor of Arts, Gender Studies, BAGS. Semester 2. BV 181 Environmental Studies. Block-1 An Introduction to Environment and Environmental Studies. Unit-4 Cinema and Theatre, with reference to translation. 4.0 Objectives. Introduction to the development of cinema. Times how cinema translates language, society and culture, to inform about it. Times Introduction to the concept of theatre. Times providing information on the development of theatre. Times Introduction to the relationship between theatre and translation. Times to clarify the comparative relationship between theatre and cinema. 4.1 Introduction. Cinema and theatre is a simulation of human thoughts and feelings through acting. In other words, it is a medium that is a replica of a person's conscience, desire, need or the world that resides in his mind. Cinema has emerged as the most powerful medium of audiovisual medium in this century, which has the ability to influence the human mind, entertain it and also stir it to do something new. Apart from social responsibility, cinema is the best medium for promotion of artistic feeling in human beings, which grows in the shadow of art and culture. Mainly cinema is the art of communicating visual images and sound signals collectively by means of celluloid. In the early stages of the advent of celluloid, some enthusiastic directors like Pudovkin, Rota, Einstein, Gripserson etc. used it to highlight human life and its various aspects. In every era and changing environment, many new things get added to the society, civilization and culture. The contribution of cinema as the world's most widespread and interesting art medium in modern times has been significant. It is also important because cinema as a medium of expression and entertainment is regulated by the whole culture of any society and at the same time it also regulates the whole culture of that particular society. This is because cinema is the only medium that expresses itself in the commune, in all its complexity. We have discussed in our other units how cinema is different and important from other popular mediums like television and radio. In this unit, we will also discuss the relation between cinema and translator, how cinema works as translation and how it gets translated along with language, culture and society. Let us first have a look at the growth journey of cinema in India and in the world scenario. 4.2 Evolution of cinema. English author and thinker of 20th century, George Bernard Shaw realized in the infancy of cinema that cinema as an invention could prove to be more effective than the printing press because it could serve both educated and uneducated sections of the society equally. It is an influential medium. This art, which provides the energy of modernity and sophistication to the society, has a significant impact on the mentality and conduct of the person. Apart from influencing human intelligence, thinking and behavior, cinema brings changes in it over time. In fact, cinema also selects its story from the society and develops it according to the society. In the changing times, technology is needed for any art that affects the society, because technical partnership becomes necessary to form the vast truths of the society and to reach it to the wider society. In this way, technology sharing leads to the use and development of the latest technology. It is also true that no technology is the gift of any one person in its entirety, but the use and development of any technology is collectively under a continuous process. There are many stages in this process of development, behind which there is a confluence of humans' indomitable potential and intelligence. The present form of cinema has also been the result of a long development process, which we can start with the invention of Thomas Edison's kinetoscope. Kinetoscope used to be a box-like device which we today colloquially call a bioscope. Edison showed moving pictures for the first time with the help of incandescent lamp. In this, people used to look through a hole in the kinetoscope. Now its use has stopped, but till 4 decades ago, in fairs and markets, moving pictures were seen through binoculars. But the problem with the kinetoscope was that only one person could see it at a time. But as we know that with the progress of science the difficulties become easier. This is what happened in 1895. Robert W. Paul, along with his colleague Bert Akers, invented a film projector so that cinema could be shown to groups. This was also the time when Auguste and Louis Lumière were inventing a triac instrument in France, which was called the cinematograph. Along with Europe, cinema was also being worked on during that time in America. It was a silent era in the history of cinema. In fact, Edison had imagined sound cinema only, but his imagination came true only in the year 1927 when jazz singer came. Between 1895 and 1906, while cinema was struggling with its technology, on the other hand, it was soon realized that more money could be earned through cinema only when it was shown collectively. This was not possible with an instrument like the kinetoscope, as only one person could see at a time. This motive made possible the development of cinema on a large scale. However, for years cinema remained a medium shown in tent houses and fairs. But soon they were replaced by studios, and producers insisted on patents. Various techniques were adopted and cinema started running at double its speed. The development of railways had contributed a lot to the development of cinema. Filmmakers started using trains to show moving effects. Photographs were taken not only from outside the moving train, but also from inside, but some enthusiastic producers and cameramen even took pictures by placing the camera ahead on the engine of the train. It was called Phantom Ride. The film called The Kiss in the Tunnel is the best example of this. In 1897, Robert W. Paul took the first uninterrupted photographs of Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee celebrations by placing his camera on a tripod. This was a major achievement in the journey of cinema. Gradually, new tricks were introduced in the cinema. Robert Paul introduced what he called the stop motion technique of a vanishing woman in cinema, whereas G.A. Smith invented the double exposure technique, with the help of which ghosts were shown on the screen. It was named ghost effect. Smith made Santa Claus using this technique. Another technique credited to Smith is called retrograde technique or reverse motion film. Similarly, where Edwin Porter and Albert Smith introduced animation and cartoon films to the society, D.W. Griffith stunned cinemagoers by showing the variety of fire effects and lighting on the screen in films such as the Danka DRS Reformation. But most important of all was the advent of narrative cinema. The narrative technique was used for the first time in The Light of Jesus Christ, Griffith is credited with introducing the technique that a movie can be based on a story or that a movie can be a story. The use of technology in cinema has a long continuous story of technological development, with various experiments in cinema in later years and continuing till today. Presenting with the confluence of story, scene, motion, drama, sensitivity, human feeling, dialogue, dialogue art and visual images, cinema brought a revolution on the world scenario of entertainment. Till 1913, cinema continued to develop at an uninterrupted pace in Britain, France, Italy, Australia, etc. But due to the beginning of the First World War in 1914, cinema making in Europe was unfortunately interrupted. On the other hand, Thomas Edison's patenting of his technology caused most people interested in cinema making to migrate to Southern California. In this way, a new center of cinema making began to be created, which we all know today as Hollywood. Cinema in India also started almost simultaneously with the world cinema, but in the later years, the pace of development of cinema in India was interrupted due to two world wars and India's involvement in the freedom struggle. Nevertheless, today India is the largest film producing country in the world. Indian cinema began to film wrestling matches and the Hanging Gardens of Bombay. There has been a long tradition of theatre in India, due to which cinema also had the advantage that theatre and audience were present, but due to integration, it took a long time for cinema to become an industry in India. Later in this chapter, we will also have a look at the development of theatre. Gradually, cinema was soon accepted as a substitute for theatre in India. It is another matter that cinema never became a substitute for theatre, but it can be said that art films did emerge as a capable rival to celluloid. For the first time in 1896, Harishchandra Bhatwadekar started cinema in India by showing cinema in Bombay and Hiralal Sen in Calcutta. In 1913, for the first time, Dada Saheb Phalke made Harishchandra in India on the lines of the film Love of Christ, made in the West. It was a silent film which surprisingly hit the box office. The 20s of the 20th century was a flourishing decade for the Indian film industry. India produced more films than Britain during this decade. P.C. Baruya, Ganguly and Devki Bose made their mark in Bengal, while Chandulal Shah, Himanshu Rai and Shantaram made their mark in Bombay. This was the time when KK people like Subrahmanyam were involved in enriching cinema. 4.3 Relationship of cinema with translation. In this chapter we are discussing how cinema performs the function of translation. Apart from this, in this sequence, we will also see how it gets translated through language, society and culture. Cinema plays a deep part in the fabric and texture of all three, namely language, society and culture. In this context, Benjamin Levov says, any language is meaningless without the embedded elements of culture, just as any culture looks non-existent without keeping the structure of its natural language at the center. That is, language is the soul of any culture, rather say that it is a dialogue between these two, i.e., society and culture, and the energy of life flows continuously. For example, Benjamin Levov says that just as a surgeon, while performing bypass surgery, cannot ignore other parts of the body, in the same way a translator is expected to pass through the process of translation to the text-related society. And don't ignore the culture. It is appropriate to say here that when cinema related to a particular language is translated into another language, a similar convention of cultures is visible there too. From the example of the talking films that were made after Alam Ara, we can say that the linguistic culture of Bengali, Marathi, Tamil etc. had left a deep impression on Hindi cinema. In 1935, P.C. Baruya associated with new theatres made Devdas in Bengali. Baruya's Devdas established itself as a defining film not only in Hindi cinema but in Indian cinema. Only the proper coordination of society and culture with the technology of cinema makes it successful, then the language automatically contributes. This is the reason why the film Sant Tukaram, made in Marathi in 1936, was the first Indian film which could get international discussion and respect. V. Damle and S. Jointly directed by Fattelal, the film was deeply rooted in the society and culture of Maharashtra. It can be said that apart from society, culture and language, if there is any element which plays a central role in the success of the film, it is human sensitivity. An example of this was Mrinal Sen's Bhuvan Som, Hindi, made in 1969. The language of this film was Hindi, the society and culture were of Gujarat, the story was Bengali and the mood was non-Hindi speaking, but the film was successful. What better example of translation can there be? Many excellent Hindi language films have been translated from Tamil language films, establishing their relevance from the cinematic screen to the international world. In Tamil, talented directors like Mani Ratnam laid the foundation for modern, powerful and highly imaginative cinema. Film talents like Asames, Janu Barua, Ketan Mehta, Manvi Nibhava, in Gujarati, Nirad Mahapatra, Emami Ningate, in Oriya, established the film as representative of society and culture. Wherever cinema tried to translate society and culture, language never became a barrier. Cinema does use popular language, but Indian cinema is known as Eliptathayam, Swayamvaram, Mukhmukham, Anantaram, Vidayan, Matilukal. South Indian filmmaker Adur Gopal Krishnan, who has given thought-oriented films, believes that it is futile to criticize films only on the basis of language. That's why Adur considers it crude or rude to call films in languages other than Hindi as regional cinema. This is the reason why Adur opposes dividing films of Girish Kannad, Ritwik Ghatak, Shyam Benegal, Girish Kasaravali, Satyajit Ray etc. into two categories of art and popular cinema, and they always bridge this gap. When any film is translated into another language, its scope becomes wider. It is appropriate to say here that its translation can be ridiculous only on linguistic grounds. This is the reason why when cinema goes through the process of translation, its creative, cultural and social responsibilities increase even more. According to Roman Jakobson, only creative translation can be possible within translation. According to him, any composition when translated transposes the signs. He believes that any translation is considered successful only when it can convert foreign symbols into symbols of the target environment in addition to translation. Jakobson, like Benjamin Lee, is not ready to accept that the symbols of one environment are substitutes for the symbols of another environment. Rather, he says that symbols from two different cultures may appear to be similar, but not form one. But, In spite of all the odd circumstances, films are being translated even today and will continue to be translated in the future as well. The reason for this is well known that cinema is the most powerful medium of audiovisual medium, because it has not only entertainment but also the ability to provide information, education as well as the ability to bring about social change. Even in Western countries, cinema has been considered as the most important medium of cultural expression. For example, you can take Basil Wright's film, Song of Ceylon, made in 1934, which also explores the culture, religion, art, and even the economic condition of his country. This film is also important because there is an expansion of poetic feeling everywhere, which makes the expression even more powerful. Along with this, the film also exposes the ugliness of the colonial rule in a meaningful way. In addition to the expression of a cinema story, it also gives expression to humanity and constitutes it in a new way. Therefore, as an art medium, it is the responsibility of cinema to translate human beings with their full humanity and artistic feeling. When we talk about films that have a meaningful relationship with the arts and keep pace with the culture, then we come across the names of films representing diverse ideologies. These films have been given many names over time, such as realistic film, artistic film, parallel film, new wave film, commercial film, non-commercial film, elegant film, etc. To translate society and culture in all these types of films, in addition to spontaneity, realism, sensitivity, imagination, dynamism and poetry, human and social sophistication is needed. This is the reason why art films were used against social distortion. The field of art films is such that very powerful and progressive films were made. Films like Damul or Ankur aptly presented the reality of Indian public life, its horrors and struggle, which portrayed sympathy towards the common man. Griffith Eisenstein, Chaplin, Orson Welles, Fellini, Bergman, Kurosawa, Tarkovsky, Godard, Satyajit Ray, etc. are prominent among those who tried to translate social reality through cinema. A deep moral vision sets Ray apart from the rest. He considered the audience as his ideal and advocated keeping them at the center. But he also believed that a limited audience can also be a big and successful cinema. But he also considered it necessary for the film to be financially successful for ideal and successful films. Among his successful films, the name of Patha Panchali is internationally renowned. The film is the story of interpersonal relationships happening within a family, where poverty, death, creation, destruction are all portrayed together. But everything happens in the shadow of invisible social change. The film is characterized by photographic realism and emotionless analysis. But this cinema nominated in excellent films irrigates the viewer with emotion and sensitivity. It is a Bengali film, but its social setting is global. Apart from this, Satyajit Ray produced classic films like Apur Sansar, Charulatha, Gopi Gayune Baga, Bain, Seema Band, and Agantuk. One film that is very important to mention in the context of cinema and translation is French filmmaker Godard's 1956 film Schwasarit, Breathless, which created a sensation among filmmakers around the world. This film tried to define film culture in a new way. The film highlights the never-ending relationship between life and literature. translating the novelty of the subject succinctly to the audience. The film was instrumental in changing the grammar of cinematic culture. If the role of cinema is effective, then it is possible that humanity will be expressed in a new and meaningful form. Due to these reasons, many times such films are made which take initiative to save humanity, culture, language and society. French filmmaker Wim Wenders' film, Lisbon Story, is a film in which the film's protagonist wanders in search of unseen images and unheard sounds. He feels that all images and sounds have been destroyed by industrial civilization. Here the filmmaker has presented the person, society, man and any aspect of life in such a way that his creativity penetrates deep into the viewer's feelings and emotions. In order to translate the film, attention must be paid to the fact that the text of the film is being translated correctly or not. Because dialogues differ in many films, and in such a situation the responsibility of linguistic sophistication increases on the translator. Wherever you are, if you are, by Polish filmmaker Krzysztof Janussi, is one such film. The heroine of this film becomes a victim of mental insanity. The film has an atmosphere before the Second World War. It was a very difficult task to translate the dialogues of the heroine who lived in the black shadow of the war into a different language. Nevertheless, while translating it, the fact was kept in mind that no discount can be taken in conveying the real feeling of the film to the audience. Cinema, which translates society and language, plays an important role in the permanence of culture and in enhancing and disciplining its sophistication and civilization whenever needed. For these reasons, the role of cinema becomes important to investigate the basic questions of life. In this context, Humphrey Jennings' film, A Diary for Timothy, set in 1944 during World War II, may be mentioned. Contextually, here Timothy as a child symbolizes the struggling generation to come. How Britain's adults are determined to save the nation during World War I so that the country can survive, and as Timothy grows up to lead the country in a meaningful and better direction. This effort made through films cannot be neglected as mere entertainment, rather it can be considered as a milestone towards humanity and social change. There is a need for a comprehensive sociological study of this art which translates to people's psychology. 4.4 Introduction to Theatre. There has always been an interdependent relationship between the development of human and the development of art. In this, theatre has been such a genre which has worked to provide a dimension to the emotional manifestation of human. Needless to say that this genre has played an important role in the development of language, society and culture. In this unit we will get acquainted with the development of Indian theatre. It will also examine how theatre translates language, society and culture. 4.5 Definition of theatre. Theatre is such an art where presentation has special importance. It is an art form presented in front of the audience by three-dimensional mediums such as words or voices, gestures or activities, situations or installations, in which the story or life experiences are presented to the audience in a variety of ways. The discussion of Indian theatre is incomplete without Bharat Muni. Bharat Muni is the author of Natya Sastra, and for the first time he gave theatre a meaningful condition and direction. According to him, drama is a follow-up of human gestures and its folk instincts. The relevance of theatre is proved parallel to society and social values. Theatre takes inspiration from the society and returns it to the society. It creates the conditions for the unfolding and presentation of a story or real experience, creates characters, and presents the whole event in its original form or with minor modifications, without losing its meaning, presents in front with full vivacity. 4.6 Development of theatre in India. The development of Indian theatre and literature has been an important contribution, along with Ramkatha and Krishnakatha. The stories of Kauravas and Pandavas contributed a lot in the development of theatre. Theatre flourished in a new form based on the stories of Valmiki's Ramayana and Vedvyas Mahabharata. The basis of the development of Indian theatre is Bharatmuni's Natya Shastra, which is considered the standard book of this genre in the world along with Aristotle's Poetics in the West. Indian theatre has been continuously developing after the book written about 2000 years ago. This development of Indian theatre can be divided into 3 phases. 1. Classical phase. 2. Conventional phase. 3. Modern phase. Classical phase. The classical phase focused on the writing of plays and the creation of various expressions for their presentation on stage. This was the time when Sanskrit plays developed and Ashwagosha, Visakhadatta, Kalidas, Bhasa, Harsha and Shudraka contributed significantly to its development. He took the subjects of his plays from legends, Puranas, history, folklore etc. This allowed these audiences to live and enjoy stories they were already familiar with. Among the major plays of this phase, Malviknagnimitra, Vikramorvashiyam, and Abhignanashakuntalam, composed by Kalidas, are famous. The subject of Malviknagnimitra is historical and the subjects of Vikramorvashiyam and Abhignanashakuntalam are mythological. The basis of all these 3 plays was love. Kalidas was a fan of the soft feelings of the mind. Sariputra Prakaran, composed by Ashwagosha, was the first of the Sanskrit dramas which had Buddhist philosophy embedded in its core. Bhasha composed Swapnavasvadatta and based his plays on Ramayana, Mahabharata and ancient texts. Uttaram Charit and Mahavir Charit, written in 700 AD, were the best plays of Bhavbhuti. Shudraka, Harsha, Visakhadatta, Bhasa, Kalidas, Bhavbhuti Nisad were 6 such creators, who made incomparable contribution to the development of Indian theatre through their written plays. Harsha's, Ratnavali, and Visakhadatta's, Mudrarakshas, also have a special place in theatrical texts. Traditional stage. The plays of this era were mainly based on traditions and oral practices. The stories narrated from generation to generation began to be staged in this era, and in this era folk stages emerged in different parts of India with different names in different languages. People started presenting their traditions through plays. In this, songs, dance and dialogues were used for the presentation of plays, exactly as it was done in the classical phase. Ramlila, Raslila, Noitankayan and other such plays became traditionally popular in every region. In this sequence, Khayal, in Rajasthan, Manch, in Madhya Pradesh, Noitanki, in Uttar Pradesh, Jatra, in Bengal, Bhava, in Gujarat etc. emerged. In this era, the presentation of plays also started through puppets. Puppet dances were also forms of drama in India. Putal Nach, West Bengal, and Kuderi, Ulvisa, are the best examples of puppet dances. In addition to all this, in this era of theatre, shadow theatre was also developed, which was close to puppetry, but was slightly different in the sense that where the audience could see the figures of puppets. In the dance of puppets, on this stage the only shadows could be seen through the light. The first mention of this type of theatre is found in the Tamil text, Shilapallikram. Some Western scholars like Pichel, Luders and Winternitz are of the opinion that the well-known Sanskrit drama, Mahanaka, was written specifically for shadow theatre. Shadow theatre became famous mostly in Odisha, Kerala, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. The images shown in this were usually black and white, but in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka, these images were also multicolored. Modern stage. The modern phase of the development of Indian theatre began when the confluence of Indian theatre with Western theatre began with the advent of the British. The combination of these two gave rise to a new form of theatre which was based on real and natural performances. Modern theatre especially made its narrative realistic, experimental and real issues related to the people so that the natural elements of life could be staged more deeply. With the political changes after independence, the Sangeet Natak Academy was established in January 1953 and under this the National School of Drama was established. Ibrahim Alkaji was appointed as the director of the National School of Drama. The rise of Ibrahim Alkaji took place in the 60s when a new era in the field of drama writing in Indian languages was being ushered in. Dharmavir Bharti, Girish Karnad, Mohan Rakesh, Vijay Tendulkar and Badal Sarkar contributed to making the field of drama wide, strong and multicolored. Dharmavir Bharti's, Andhayug, Girish Karnad's, Yayati, and Tughlaq, Mohan Rakesh's, Ashad Ka Ek Din, Vijay Tendulkar's Sukharam, Binder, and Khamosh Adalat Jari Hai, Badal Sarkar's Hiroshima, drama they hold a special place in the field. By presenting almost all of these works on the stage in an original way, Ibrahim Alkaji created a new theatrical discourse. Alkaji considered the recitation, rehearsal and background stage of the plays to be essential for both color training and theatre work. Apart from this, set design, lighting concept, clothing configuration to posters, and brochures of theatrical productions also have a very important place in the world of theatre. Alkaji was the first to take the initiative to maintain creativity in this field as well. Indian theatre has come a long way by passing through various developments in these three phases and has given birth to contemporary theatre. At present, many theatre circles, committees and academies in India are committed and working for the development of theatre so that Indian theatre can be given an international identity. Even in the contemporary perspective, Indian theatre has retained its vibrancy and is on the path of continuous progress. 4.7 Theatre and Translation. Translation in theatre has always been considered a difficult task. When a work is translated into the form of theatre, it deviates from its original, either due to the techniques of theatre or its own conditions and due to the target audience of the theatre, but then it is communicated to the target audience in the same form. It is not able to be communicated in the form in which it is originally intended. Since theatre is an art of expression in words and narrative techniques, a translator is faced with many translational problems when adapting a text for the stage. In such a situation, the whole process of converting the original text and its theatrical text becomes present in front of us as a complex process. We will discuss this whole process in the next unit. Theatre lessons differ from lessons in other genres because theatre is an art of silence. In theatre, many things are expressed in silence, where the artist says a lot without saying anything, while artistic expressions like story, poetry, etc., are present in their statement with completeness. In this way, we can say that theatre translation is also not only linguistic translation but also translation of tradition, society, and culture. For example, we can take the place of Lakshmi Narayan Mishra. There is excellent coordination of Indian and Western sentiments in his plays. The plots of his plays are related to Indian history and social and cultural problems. For these reasons, his plays have been given the noun of problem-oriented plays. He has analyzed real-life problems and male-female relations and depicted the conflict between the individual and the society. His plays written in the 30s, 1933, Sanyasi, Rakshasa Ka Mandir, Mukti Ka Rahesya, Rajyoga, and Sindoor Ki Holi, highlight the problems of modern life with great detail. Highlighting the relation of drama and translation, Benjamin Lee believes that translation is the result of thinking and understanding from which the original text has emerged. Language translation or translation is just one of its many embedded elements. And Oberfeld also believes that in theatre it seems an impossible task to separate the original text from the theatrical performance. According to him, there is the same dialectical relationship between theatre and text as the relationship between language and film. Oberfeld opposes artificially separating theatre and cinema from any literary text and assigning higher literary status to either. According to him, translation also translates experiences. In such a situation, this argument of an Oberfeld becomes important for us, because cinema and theatre in many ways translate the feelings in the same way, and sometimes even better, than any literary work can. In such a situation, the responsibility of the director of any theatre or cinema increases further towards that language and literature from which the translated art forms, be it theatre or cinema, come after being translated. This process of transfer and change of signs is continuous, which goes on between theatre and cinema and literary creation, i.e., poetry, story, novel. Robert Corrigan believes that a translator must listen to the voice that is being expressed without being spoken and must also absorb the little gestures of the language that the written text is not saying, but that it keeps on expressing itself in silence. In this way, Robert Corrigan reaches very close to Bogatyrev in his thoughts where he talks about the linguistic system of the theatre. Bogatyrev says that the linguistic expression of the theatre is actually a structure of signs. It is not just a sign of discourse but a discussion of signs. Bogatyrev also supports the idea that characters in the theatre should express their attitudes in accordance with their social circumstances and conditions. In such a situation, they should also express their relatives and visual realities with subtlety. Robert Corrigan says the same thing. It goes without saying that we can understand the role of translation in theatre in such a way that it is otherwise a mode of converting social situations into symbols. For example, by going through the process of translation, one sign is actually converting its social situation into a similar sign of another social situation. Theatre knowingly or unknowingly also translates the unlimited imagination of human. Imagination refers to the senses, impulses and desires of human extending to infinity. This is the reason why heavy Stage decoration or special lighting arrangements in the play have only secondary importance in front of the script of the play and the excellent acting ability of the actors. Theatrical compositions sometimes translate all the circumstances of the country in a satirical manner, in a sharp manner. Gyandev Agnihotri's Shatumud is one such play which makes a scathing satire on the contemporary political system. Well-known story writer and film writer Kamleshwar used to say, the level of satire at which the play is composed is the inauguration of an important direction in the plays. The insight of the playwright has gone deep everywhere, and he has given a dramatic capable voice to the intentions of the time by holding the original story tightly. It is not an easy task to express such churning and representation of our country's time, such sense of time and the anger, frustration, dissatisfaction arising out of it, in true sense and easily. The art of theatre in India has seen many ups and downs since its inception till the present. Bharat Muni's Natya Sastra became the basis of Indian theatre. Apart from this, Indian theatre also absorbed some positive elements from the theatres of Greece and Rome. In the second half of the 19th century, Bhartendu Harishchandra discussed it extensively in his article, Natak. Influenced by Kalidas, Shudrak, Bhasa, Bhavbhuti along with Shakespeare, Kafka, Chekhov etc. Indian theatre stands firm with its strong potential even today. Along with the development of society, politics and modernity, new dimensions were added to Indian theatre. In the later years, where on one hand the participation of women in Indian theatre, the thinking of theatre became serious, on the other hand issues like communalism, terrorism, marketism and globalization were also raised through it. In this way, theatre tried to meaningful translation of language, culture and society with progressive thinking. 4.8 Comparative study of theatre and cinema. Artistic expression of society, culture and civilization is the basic purpose of theatre and cinema. But the question may arise that despite the existence of drama in the society today, why does cinema appear to be a more effective medium? Perhaps the direct answer to this question lies in the development of technology and skill, in addition to the development of human consciousness and will. The basic difference between theatre and drama is based on artistic originality. Manoharasham Joshi talks at length in this context. They believe that artistic originality in theatre is evident in its live rawness, whereas in cinema it is used as basic material. Cinema has scope for various options of emotion and presentation, while any film passes through high-tech cameras before reaching the audience. But in the drama nothing happens between the audience and the character. There is scope for repeated analysis and sophistication in cinema, while theatre creates new standards of artistry with its vibrant originality. 4. Film and TV. The play is performed in front of a camera, not in front of an audience. Secondly, what is played once is recorded forever. The third and most important thing is that the cameras, which are the representatives of the audience, are not restricted like the spectators of the theatre to sit in their own seats and watch the spectacle. In the theatre there is always a distance between the audience sitting on the front seats and the characters standing on the stage. But for the audience sitting in the theatres, the camera erases this distance. Cinema can take a great deal of visual liberties by using technique and technology. But the specialty of theatre is that it leaves a special impression on the audience despite the minimal use of technology. Along with this, there is a limitation of the theater that very big things cannot be shown in it. Scenes like the Battle of Panipat or the conquest of Everest or the sinking of the Titanic ship in the ocean cannot be shown on the grandest stage, where small things can be shown with the help of a cinema camera. On the other hand, the biggest things can also be shown. In a way, this is the specialty of a film, that the place of occurrence in it keeps on changing very fast. Satyajit Ray thinks very seriously about literature, original fiction and screenplay, while discussing the process of filmmaking. At one place he explains the difference between theatre and film in this way. Theatre and film are completely different things. In a theatre, rituals are easier to follow because you have three walls and a ceiling, you have a proscenium, the part between the curtain and the stage where the orchestra is. Stylized dialogue, stylistic expressions, stylistic setting are all there with a stylistic form. But why should the film recreate the stage form? I don't feel any aesthetic need for it, only as some kind of riyaz it can be. Ray considers cinema a realistic medium. They believe that cinema is very close to reality. They don't see contraction or any kind of stretch in it. But he recognizes that there is a certain tension in theatre where conventions have to be accepted. With all these limitations, we are forced to accept the fact that despite some technical, emotional, stylistic differences, the basic purpose of theatre and cinema is the same, to translate language, society and culture in contemporary contexts and to adapt them to new contexts. 4.9 Let us sum up. In this lesson you got acquainted with the development of cinema and theatre, and the role of translation in it. How cinema is an integrated representation of audiovisual medium. Facing what kind of difficulties did the cinema move forward on the path of development? How cinema tries to translate language, society, and culture. Apart from this, you got an introduction to the concept of theatre. To know the importance of various stages in the development journey of theatre, you got acquainted with the interrelationship of theatre and translation and also became aware of the variations and differences between theatre and cinema. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, and we will see you with the next chapter.